Hey guys, this is Afik. In the last episode we took care of the CSS we had to match the basic design of our uploader component. Okay, the next thing we want to do is make sure that our styles are changing once we drag over a file into this component. Okay, so let's see if we can get my desktop. Okay, and once I drag this image over here, the style should be different. Okay, so we need to make sure we have this draggable event inside our component so we can add a class and design this component a little bit different. Let's go back into our component and the image uploader, go all the way to the top, and this div I want to add a few events to it. Okay, the first event will be drag enter. So on drag enter, I will call a function called on drag enter. Next I'll have another one for drag leave. So drag leave will have another method for on drag leave. Now I want to make sure that once I drag over it, it's not gonna scramble with our class, because those events are going to propagate into the inner components, into the inner elements, and I want to make sure it doesn't happen. So I can do on drag over not prevent. And next, let's say that on drop, I'll call the method on drop. And finally, I want to have a class with a condition that says that if we're currently dragging over this element, we want to have a class called dragging. So dragging if is dragging, and this is dragging variable, we need to define this one inside our data. Let's go down here. We'll have a data, a function that returns an object, and we'll have is dragging to be equal false initially. And now we can set this variable right here to be true or false based on those events right here. So drag enter, we want to make this one true. On drag leave, we want to make it false. Okay, so let's go into our methods and do this one on drag enter. It will get an event. We can first stop the default action of the browser, so e.prevent default. And then we can do this dot is dragging equal to true. And we'll do the same one for on drag leave, but in this case we're going to do is dragging equals false. Okay, and before we check this one in the browser, I want to go down into our styling. It says that if we have this class, we're just gonna invert all our colors. So the color will be this blue color and the background should be white. The same for the border and the same for the the label that inside the file input. Okay, so let's say that if we have another class called dragging on this element, we can do background of white. The color should be the same as this one. We need the border to be the same but with this blue color. Then we can grab the file input label and invert the colors as well, so we need to grab both of them, but in this case the blue should be the background and the white should be the text. Okay, let's go back into the browser now and try this one. Refresh, and I'll grab this image right here and drag it, and as you can see the class took effect on the first time, but then it's not getting this is dragging variable to be false. The reason for that is because those events, the on drag enter and the on drag leave, both of them are propagating inside the other elements. Okay, so whenever I do this one, I get another element that will set the is dragging to be true again. So once I try to hover out, something in the way will cause this one to be true again and again and again, and it's not going to work. Okay, so the trick that we're going to make here is we can create a counter that says that whenever we hover over an element, so we drag a file over this one, we can increment a count by 1, and once we leave the element we can decrease the count by 1, and if the counts get to 0 we can remove the class completely. Okay, so let's go back into our code and try this logic. We'll go up here into the on drag enter, and right before the this dot is dragging equals true, we can do this dot drag count ++ and make sure this one starts at 0. Okay, And the same down here, we can do this dot drag count minus minus, and if this dot drag count is less than or equal to 0, only in this case I want to set this one to false. Okay, let's go back into our browser and refresh and try to drag the image again, and it doesn't work. Let's check the console. Okay, so we have invalid handler for event drop. It might be because I forgot to create the onDrop method down here, and I did. So onDrop. Okay, and let's check this one again. Refresh, drag and leave, and it works. Great. Okay, the next step will be to take care on the onDrop method that we have once we drop a file into our element. Okay, so let's go down into this method, and first we need to do two things. So the first one will be to prevent the default action of the browser, and also to stop the propagation into the other elements inside the one we just drop a file into it. Next, we need to disable the dragging variable, so isDragging equals false. And now we can grab the files from the event itself. So we have files, it's going to be equal to e.dataTransfer.files. Okay, let's console.log those files to make sure we have them. Go back into the browser, refresh, and grab those three, drag in here, and we have a file list with 3 files. Great. We can go back now into the component, and we want to make sure that we grab all those files and save them locally, so once the user click on upload, we can grab all the files and send them to the server. Okay, so we need two things here. One, we need files array inside our data. Next, we need an images array because we want another way to present those images to the user before he uploads the images. Okay, but the reason we need two arrays is because one, we need the file itself as the file object, so we can send it inside the form data to the server, and the images array is going to be for files that we convert into images using the reader inside our JavaScript into base64 format, so we can present them inside an image tag to the user. Okay, so we need to do those two things, and we'll create a function for that called addImage, and for each one of those files we'll add an image. Okay, so we need to loop through those this array of files, but we cannot do that. We cannot do files dot for each because this one is not an array. We can do array dot from and pass those files, and it will create an array for us. And now we can do for each, and for each file we'll call this dot addImage and send the file. Okay, and this addImage method will get a file, and first we want to check that this file type is an image, and the way to do that is we can check if the file dot type dot match is image and any kind of image, and if it's not that, we can console.log something like file.name is not an image, and then return. And if it is an image, we want to do this dot files dot push for this file, and then we want to convert this file into a base64 image so we can throw it inside an image tag. Okay, let's go down here and do const image equals new image, and we also need to create a reader. It will be a new file reader. Now I can grab this reader object, and once it loads a new image, I want to bind this one to a function that will get the event and do this dot images dot push to this event dot target dot result. Okay, but in order for this onload function to be called, we need to do something with the reader. I want to do reader dot read as data URL, and we'll pass the file into it. And what we get back is a base64 image inside this event.target.result. And now the only thing we have left is to show the images to the user. We can go up here, and you know what, let's just wrap everything here inside another div. and I'll show it only if we don't have images yet, so not images.length. If we do have images, I'll create another div with the class of images preview and vShow if images.length. Now in here I'll create a for loop for each image, and I want to show an image tag with the source of this image and also the name and the size. Okay, so I'll create a wrapper div, call this one image wrapper, and do v4. We need the index, so image and index in images, and the key will be the index. Next, let's create the image tag, and the source is the image itself, and let's do the alt something like image uploader, and let's just throw the index in here. Next, let's do a details div and give this one two spans. The first one is going to be for the name and the other one for the size. Now I'm currently looping through the images and not the files, and on the image itself I don't have the name. So what I can do is use the index, go into our files array and grab the file at this index and grab the name from it. Okay, so I can say that the vtext here, it's going to be the files at index.name. And the same for the size. I can grab the same thing right here, go down to the size and dot size. It's what we're looking for. Let's save this one, go back into the browser and refresh and grab those three images, drop them here, and it's not an image. Let's see why that happened. On drop, and I have a typo here, so file, save, go back into the browser, refresh, grab those images, drop them here, and it works. The design is not yet implemented, as you can see, but it works. Okay, the next step will be to make sure that on input change for this file input right here, we do the same thing. We can go back into our component, and right here at the on input change, we can do the same thing. We can grab the files from the event, so e.target.files, and we can loop through all the files, and for each one of them call the file call the this.addImage method. Let's try this one. Go back into the browser, refresh, click on select a file. Let's select all of them, open, and it works. Great. Okay, that was it for this episode. In the next one, we're going to present a nicely formatted size for each image. We're going to design all the images to have a box for each one of them with the image name and the size. We will handle the upload button that will send everything to the server. All the code for this project will be inside my GitHub repo once this series is over. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.